The rain tapped gently against the window as Sarah sat alone in her small apartment. The silence of waiting pressed heavy on her heart. She had prayed for months, maybe even years, for an answer. For healing, for direction, for something to shift, but heaven seemed quiet. "Lord, how much longer?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "How much longer until you move?" Every day, she woke up, hoping this would be the day. The day her breakthrough came. The day the door opened. The day the storm finally passed. But instead of open doors, she saw more delays. Instead of clear skies, more clouds. One afternoon, as she sat staring at her Bible, she opened to Isaiah 55:8-9. "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Tears filled her eyes as she read it again. Maybe it wasn't denial. Maybe it was divine delay. Maybe the silence wasn't punishment, but preparation. She remembered something her grandmother once said: "When God seems silent, He's often speaking the loudest, just not in the way we expect." That night, Sarah decided to stop fighting the silence and start listening in it. Instead of asking why, she began to ask what. "Lord, what are you teaching me in this waiting?" And slowly, her heart began to change. The waiting, that once felt like a prison, became a place of pruning. The unanswered prayers, that once felt like rejection, began to look like redirection. She realized that the God who parted seas could also part time itself. That if He was waiting, it must be for her good. Days turned to weeks, weeks into months, but Sarah was no longer the same. She started journaling prayers instead of complaints, worshiping instead of worrying, trusting instead of trembling. And one morning, as she sat with her coffee and Bible, she heard that still, small voice whisper deep within her spirit, "Daughter, I was never late. I was preparing you for what I already prepared for you." That day, peace filled her heart like a sunrise breaking through the night. And soon after, not by striving, not by fear, but by God's perfect design, the door she had been praying for opened. But this time, she walked through it not as the same person who had started waiting. She walked through it as someone transformed by the waiting, because the truth is, waiting isn't wasted when your eyes are on Jesus. Sometimes God delays not to deny, but to deepen, to strengthen our roots, to teach us that His timing is perfect, even when it doesn't feel like it. Isaiah 40:31 reminds us, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." So, friend, maybe you're like Sarah today, sitting in a quiet room, praying for something to shift. You feel unseen, forgotten, maybe even abandoned. But can I remind you, you are not alone? Jesus is in the waiting with you. He is shaping your heart. He is strengthening your faith. He is preparing you for what He's preparing for you. When God says, "Not yet," it's never no. It's "Trust me, child, I'm working in ways you can't see." Don't rush what God is refining. Don't quit before the miracle. Every delay is laced with divine love. Every silence is a seed being planted. Every moment of waiting is heaven whispering, "Be still and know that I am God." And one day, when the waiting ends and the promise comes to pass, you'll look back and realize, the waiting was never a punishment. It was the birthplace of your strength.
The sun dipped low behind the clouds as Daniel sat quietly on his porch, staring at the fading horizon. The world around him was still, but his heart wasn't. He was tired of waiting, waiting for answers, waiting for breakthrough, waiting for that one prayer to finally be answered. "Lord, why does it take so long?" he whispered. "Why can't things just happen now?" It felt like every dream he had was stuck in pause, like God had pressed delay on everything he hoped for. But deep down, Daniel knew something. God wasn't ignoring him. He was preparing him. One morning, as he opened his Bible, his eyes fell on Isaiah 64. For since the world began, no ear has heard, and no eye has seen a God like you, who works for those who wait for him. He read it twice, and something in his spirit stirred. God works while I wait. It was like light breaking through the fog. Maybe the waiting wasn't punishment. Maybe it was preparation. He remembered how a seed must be buried before it can bloom. It sits in the dark, unseen, unmoving, yet within that silence life is forming. Could it be that God was doing the same in him? Day after day, Daniel struggled between frustration and faith. There were moments when impatience screamed louder than peace, moments when he wanted to quit praying, to stop believing. But every time he knelt down, something inside whispered, "Don't give up, I'm not done yet." And slowly, Daniel began to see that waiting wasn't wasted time, it was holy time. In that quiet season, God was teaching him patience, humility, endurance. The waiting became like a workshop for his soul. He stopped fighting the delay and started embracing it. He realized transformation is slow. Growth takes time. You don't become who God called you to be overnight. The fruit that lasts is always grown in hidden seasons. He thought about Joseph, thrown into a pit, forgotten in prison, waiting for years before standing in the palace. What if Joseph had given up before the promise? He thought about David, anointed king, yet tending sheep for years while God shaped his heart in secret. And he realized God's delays are not his denials. There, sitting under the open sky, Daniel lifted his hands and said, "All right, Lord, I'll wait, not with bitterness, but with belief, not with frustration, but with faith." He prayed, "Teach me what you're teaching me in the waiting. Shape me while I can't see what's coming. Let me honor you now, behind the scenes, so that when the door opens, I'll be ready." That prayer changed everything. The same man who once wrestled with impatience began to rest in God's perfect timing. He learned to worship while waiting, to thank God even before seeing results. And over time, Daniel noticed something amazing. His prayers were changing from "Lord, give me the promise" to "Lord, make me ready for the promise." Because waiting seasons weren't meant to break him, they were meant to build him. He realized if God gave him everything he asked for when he asked for it, it would destroy him, not develop him. Just like a good father doesn't give his child everything they cry for, God withholds certain things, not out of cruelty, but out of love. And when Daniel finally saw God's promise unfold, it didn't come overnight. It came after years of quiet obedience, of unseen faithfulness, of choosing to trust even when nothing made sense. As he stood in the answered prayer he had once begged for, he wept, not just because of what God did, but because of who he had become in the waiting. Waiting had changed him, refined him, strengthened him, and he finally understood waiting isn't God punishing you, it's God preparing you. So if you're in that place right now, between promise and fulfillment, take heart, my friend. God hasn't forgotten you. He's forming something within you. Don't rush the process, embrace it. Let the season of waiting do its holy work, because one day, when the breakthrough comes, you'll look back and say, "Now I see it, Lord. You were with me all along. The waiting wasn't wasted, it was working for my good."
The night had grown still, and Daniel sat under the open sky again. The same place where months ago, he had wept and wrestled with God about the waiting. But tonight, he thought back on all those moments when he begged God for things that never came. The promotion he thought he needed, the relationship he was sure would make him happy. The door he desperately wanted to open, but now, looking back, he could finally see it. God was protecting him the whole time. Sometimes, what we call delay, God calls mercy. Sometimes, what we call denial, God calls protection. "Lord," Daniel whispered, "I see it now?" You didn't say no because you didn't care. You said no because you loved me too much to give me something that would destroy me before I was ready to handle it. He
1% सुधार का लक्ष्य रखो। आज का 1% कल साल भर में तुम्हें अलग मुकाम पर पहुंचाएगा। मेहनत का मतलब सिर्फ शरीर का थकना नहीं है। मेहनत का मतलब है बुद्धिमानी से प्रयास करना। वह इंसान जो दिन भर केवल थकावट महसूस करता है, वह मेहनत नहीं कर रहा, वह बस व्यस्त है। मेहनत की परिभाषा तब बदलती है जब तुम्हारा हर कदम किसी मकसद की तरफ हो। दिमाग की परिभाषा तब बदलती है जब वह सिर्फ सोचने तक सीमित न रहे, बल्कि परिणाम देने वाले काम की रूपरेखा बना दे। जब तुम दिमाग और मेहनत को एक ही निशाने पर रखोगे, तब तुम्हारा हर पसीना मूल्यवान बन जाएगा। पसीने की हर बूंद में अगर सोच का मोती जुड़ जाए, तो वही बूंद किसी दिन सोने का हार बन जाए। अब मैं तुम्हें कुछ ऐसी आदतें बताऊंगा जो अमीरों और सफल लोगों के अंदर हमेशा मिलेंगी। यह आदतें न तुम्हें तुरंत रईस बनाएंगी, पर यह आदतें तुम्हारे रास्ते की मिट्टी को मजबूत कर देंगी। सुबह जल्दी उठना, पढ़ना, अपने लक्ष्यों को लिखना, छोटे छोटे कार्यों का सिस्टम बनाना और सबसे जरूरी अपने आप को लगातार सुधारना। इन आदतों का प्रभाव धीरे धीरे और पक्के तौर पर आता है, जैसे पानी की।
Even in the seasons that made no sense, waiting had taught him to surrender, to let go, to say, God, I thought I knew what was best, but I trust you anyway. He prayed softly, Lord, I let go of my timelines, my expectations, my plans. I surrender them all to you, because whatever you're doing, it's worth the wait. And as those words left his lips, peace filled his heart like never before. It wasn't just peace from God, it was peace with God, because he had finally learned the waiting wasn't wasted, it was working. It was building something inside him that comfort couldn't create. The waiting had taught him faith. The delay had taught him dependence. The silence had taught him surrender. And now, Daniel could encourage others who were walking through their own seasons of waiting. He would look them in the eye and say with conviction, My friend, don't despise the delay. Don't fight the waiting. God's timing is perfect. You may have to wait all night long, maybe for months, maybe even for years. But hold on, because he's still working behind the scenes. And when his promise comes to pass, you'll see, it was worth the wait. So if you're waiting right now, on healing, on breakthrough, on restoration, take a deep breath and surrender it all to him. You're not forgotten, you're being formed. God is shaping your heart, refining your faith, and preparing your future. Every second of waiting is filled with divine purpose. And one day, when the answer finally comes, you'll lift your hands to heaven and say, Now I understand, Lord. You were never late, you were always right on time. The waiting wasn't wasted, it was working for my good.